Animated Parashá with Micha, Animated 2.0. Welcome to another Animated Parashá with Micha. This week's portion is Parashat Mikets. In this version, you ask and I answer, or at least I try. Shall we?
Micha, is it possible for a boy who has always been bad to suddenly become good?
Of course it is. 2 years after the episode with the chief of drinks, the chief of bread, and the Yosef were still at the bottom. And it was in this parasha that he rose from the depths and reached the vice reign of mighty Egypt. Do you want to know how? Pharaoh had 2 strange dreams. In the first dream, 7 skinny cows swallowed 7 fat cows, and they remained skinny. In the second dream, 7 thin ears of grain swallowed 7 fat ears, and they remained thin and broken. Pharaoh didn't understand. He called his magicians, his ministers. What is happening in my life? One said, 7 sons will be born, 7 will die, 7 of this and 7 of that. And Pharaoh was not convinced. And it was at that moment that the Sar HaMashkin brought the minister of drinks, bringing Pharaoh's goblet. He said,
"Et chataai ani maskir hayom."
2 years later, I was thrown into the dungeon, Pharaoh. You threw me because of the fly in the wine goblet. And there I met a Jewish slave named Yosef. And he was the one who deciphered my dream, and everything he said indeed came true. Call him, because he knows how to interpret dreams. So they brought Yosef from the dungeon, changed his clothes, trimmed his beard for him to come before the king, and Pharaoh said to him, "I heard that you can interpret dreams." Yosef replied to Pharaoh, "What God tells me, I will tell Pharaoh. Everything comes from God." Pharaoh recounted the 2 strange dreams he had: skinny cows that swallowed fat ones and remained skinny, and thin ears of grain that swallowed fat ones and remained thin and broken. Yosef said to him, "Pay attention, Pharaoh. 7 years of great plenty will come to Egypt, but after the 7 years of plenty, there will be 7 years of great famine, so severe that they will devour the years of plenty. And Egypt will forget that there was ever such plenty." Pharaoh put his hands to his head and said, "My God, how am I going to rule my people? How am I going to lead in a situation where Egypt is on the verge of bankruptcy?" Yosef then gave him good advice. "Pharaoh, you will need to hire a special person who will manage all of this in Egypt and store food during the 7 years of plenty, so Egypt can survive the 7 years of famine." When Pharaoh heard this, he said,
After all of this, there's no one wiser and more intelligent to do what you're saying except you."
Pharaoh took off his ring, gave it to Yosef, special clothes, and even his own chariot, and said to him, "In Egypt, there is only one above you, me. As you understand, so it will be in all the land of Egypt." So, in response to your question, of course, a human being can rise from the depths and reach the mountaintop overnight. Everything is in God's hands. And if we do our part, we can indeed rise from the depths and reach the mountaintop. Imagine the jealousy of other ministers of Pharaoh. The slave who was sold for 20 pieces of silver, that was the value of Yosef's sale, is now the Viceroy of Egypt. All the ministers began to say, "Pharaoh, but this guy is not a king, he's a slave. He doesn't even know the 70 languages that a king must know." And God was there again for Yosef, teaching him through an angel the 70 languages he needed to know to be a king of Egypt. In fact, he even knew one language that Pharaoh himself didn't know, Lashon HaKodesh, the holy language of the Bible. Pharaoh even asked Yosef as a favor never to reveal to Egypt that Yosef knew one more language than the king of Egypt. Pharaoh gave Yosef a girl to marry, Osnat, daughter of Potiphar, daughter of Dinah, who was the daughter of Leah. And from this marriage, 2 boys were born who became known as Manasseh and Ephraim. 7 years of plenty came to Egypt, and during that time, Yosef worked hard collecting everything he could and storing it for the following 7 years, which were marked by famine, and they were about to come. And when famine struck Egypt, it wasn't just Egypt that was affected, but yes, the surrounding areas too, including the land of Israel. Yaakov and his 11 sons were also starving in the land of Israel. They heard the news that Egypt had food. So Yaakov asked his sons, Go down to Egypt and bring us some food." He sent 10 of his sons. The only one he didn't send was Benjamin. He was the youngest, the only son of Rachel that was left. When the brothers arrived in the land of Yosef, there was a long line. Many people gathered at Egypt's gate seeking food. As ordered by their father, the brothers separated to enter different gates and not cause too much commotion. Everyone who entered Egypt had to write their name and their father's name. Yosef immediately recognized his brothers, but his brothers did not recognize him. When the brothers threw him into the pit, Yosef was still a young boy. He didn't even have a beard. Today, Yosef was a bearded man, a king. So the brothers did not recognize Yosef, but Yosef recognized his brothers. Yosef was stern with them, saying, "You are spies. Why did you separate to enter different gates in my land? Is it not to assess Egypt that you want?" And the brothers replied, "We are honest people from the land of Israel. We have an old father and a little brother left with him. We had a brother who disappeared and we don't know where he is. And we are starving because the famine has also reached the land of Israel." Yosef was very hard on his brothers, took a goblet, and posed as an Egyptian magician, saying, "You are spies. 2 of you entered a city and destroyed it," referring to the story of Shechem and Dinah when she was kidnapped. Micha already told you about this. The brothers were astonished by what they heard. "This guy is a magician. He knows everything. No, we are not spies." Yosef then threw all the brothers into the prison of Mitzrayim and said, "If you want to return to your father, you must bring your little brother." For 3 days, the brothers remained in prison. Yosef, out of pity, released them. "Go back to your father and bring food to him, for he is old, but you must do as we agreed. Bring your little brother. One of you will stay here until you bring your little brother." And who is this? Simeon was chosen to stay in prison. After all, Yosef saw it was a good idea to keep Simeon and Levi separated. These 2 together had already shown they could make trouble. The other brothers returned to their father's house with food. Yosef secretly arranged to return the money the brothers brought for the food in their bags. When the brothers arrived in the land of Israel, they opened their bags, found the food and the money back in their bags. They were devastated. "What did this magician do to us? We paid for the food, and now the money is back in our bags." They told their father, "There's a magician in Egypt. He knows our lives, and he has imprisoned Simeon, and he won't let us return without our little brother." Imagine what Yaakov thinks of this story. Yosef is dead. In his mind, Yosef was dead. Simeon is imprisoned. And now Benjamin, the only son left from Rachel. Take him to Egypt? I can't, my dear children. But the famine got worse. Yaakov summoned his sons and said to them, "Go back to Egypt and bring us more food." Yehudah then went to his father and said, "Father, you know that we can't return to Egypt if we don't take our little brother Benjamin with us." Yaakov said in despair, "But why did you tell him?" "He knew everything," Yehudah said. "The guy is a magician. He knows everything." Yehudah then said to his father, "We'll all die including Benjamin if we don't go down to Egypt." Finally, they released Benjamin to go to the land of Egypt. When they arrived in the land of Egypt, Yosef prepared a grand feast, released Simeon, and using his goblet, which demonstrated his abilities as a magician, he gathered all the brothers around a table and arranged them by birth order, leaving the brothers perplexed, as he knew everything about this family. Yosef then addressed his beloved brother Benjamin, his brother from the same father and mother. He asked him, "Do you have any other brothers?" Benjamin replied, "Yes, I do. There is a brother who has disappeared. Nobody knows where he is. In fact, 10 children were born before me, and all of them have something in their name that represents and reminds us of this dear brother who is missing." When the meal ended, Yosef bid farewell to his brothers once again. He did what he had done last time. He gave them food and returned their money to their bags. He even instructed his officials, Manasseh, actually his son Manasseh, to place his goblet, the goblet he used to perform his magic, in Benjamin's bag. As the brothers were about to leave, Yosef ran after them shouting,
How dare you do something so wrong to someone who has done so much good for you? You stole my goblet.
The brothers said, "How? We are not thieves. If someone here has stolen, he should be your servant." They checked their bags from the eldest to the youngest. There was food. There was money. And where was the goblet? In Benjamin's bag. All of them came with their hands to their heads. "My God in heaven! Well, Benjamin, who we had to return to our father." Yosef said, "According to the agreement, whoever has the goblet will be my servant." And the brothers said, "No way, Benjamin must return. We will all be servants except Benjamin." Yosef said, "Absolutely not. Whoever has the cup, he is my slave. And you, return in peace to your father." What a drama.
Micha, Yosef was very tough on his brothers.
He was. Indeed, he was very tough on his brothers. But Yosef had all of this planned. he could see what would happen. Soon, Micha will tell you how Yosef was affectionate at the moment he revealed himself as Yosef to his brothers. Share your thoughts on these teachings in the video comments. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe and like our channel. Remember to tell the Parasha in your home, to your family, and of course at the Shabbat table. See ya! The Animated Parashá with Micha Animated 2.0.